Hi, I'm Ben Mankiewicz, host of Turner Classic Movies. Welcome to opening night of the 12th annual TCM Classic Film Festival, a 60th anniversary presentation of West Side Story. In just a few minutes, I'll be joined by three leading members of the cast, Rita Moreno, George Chakiris, and Russ Tamblyn. But first, a bit of history about the origins of the film. West Side Story was released in 1961, but its genesis began in New York in 1949 with theatrical director and choreographer Jerome Robbins. Robbins wanted to make a modern-day musical version of Romeo and Juliet, so he approached playwright Arthur Lawrence and composer Leonard Bernstein. Though both men were intrigued by the idea, the project didn't go anywhere until 1955, when they added lyricist Stephen Sondheim to the mix. West Side Story began to take shape, and its journey to Broadway quickened. Produced by Robert Griffith and Harold Prince, it debuted at the Winter Garden Theater in New York on September 26, 1957. Its modern New York update on Shakespeare's classic was a huge success. West Side Story ran for 732 performances. Movie producer Walter Mirisch saw the show on Broadway and knew immediately the story had cinematic potential. Quickly, Mirisch began the process of adapting it for the screen. To direct, Mirisch hired Jerome Robbins, but his film experience was limited, so to produce and co-direct, Mirisch added a seasoned hand to the mix, Robert Wise. Essentially, they had a simple division of labor. Jerome Robbins would direct the musical numbers, Robert Wise would handle the rest. The cast was headed by Natalie Wood as Maria, joined by Richard Beamer as Tony, Russ Tamblyn as Riff, Rita Moreno as Anita, and George Chakiris as Bernardo. Production got underway in August of 1960 with exterior scenes shot on location in New York in a neighborhood of Manhattan set to be demolished near what would become the new Lincoln Center. Everything else was shot at the Samuel Goldwyn Studio in Los Angeles. West Side Story made its world premiere at the Rivoli Theater in New York, October 18, 1961. Immediately it became a hit, a sensation with both critics and audiences. It became only the second movie to win double-digit Academy Awards, 10, one fewer than Ben-Hur 2 years earlier. Among its wins, Best Picture, Best Director, an Oscar shared by Wise and Robbins, and both George Chakiris and Rita Moreno won Oscars for their supporting performances. West Side Story remains one of the defining movies of the 1960s and one of Hollywood's signature musicals, as alive and infectious in 2021 as it's ever been. It's so much a part of our collective cinematic language that 60 years after its release, Steven Spielberg is directing his own version of the story later this year, featuring a culturally diverse cast, which includes Rita Moreno, who is also one of the film's executive producers. We are thrilled to feature the original West Side Story as part of our opening night presentation at the TCM Classic Film Festival, and we are honored and grateful to welcome three of the film's principal players. Joining me now, first, Rita Moreno. Rita, hello, thank you for doing this.
Hi.
Also joining me, George Chakiris. George, thank you for doing this.
Hey, Ben, glad to be here with all of you. It's great. Thank you.
And Russ Tamblyn is here as well. Russ, thanks. Hello.
Hi, Ben. Good to be with you.
It's good to have you all here. It's a big thrill for us, and I know it's not easy in these times, so thank you for doing this. Let me begin with the most obvious question that I think there is. Your careers are forever linked to this film you all made together 60 years ago. What does that mean to you in 2021 that this work that you did in 1961 still has such value? And let me begin with Rita.
It's the best thing that ever happened to me, number one. Number two, it's the best thing that ever happened to me twice. Because as you know, I am now in Steven Spielberg's version of West Side Story, which is just, it's almost bizarre, isn't it? But it's marvelous, it's wonderful. If I had to revisit anything, that's the one.
George, what about you? 60 years later, that we're still doing this interview, that so many people still love this movie. Let me put it to you this way, George. This is the favorite movie of Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor and,
wow.
and Alice Cooper. Like, it's the only way we could bring those two names together. So tell me, what's your, how do you see it? What role did it play in your life?
Oh, well, it's the most fantastic thing that has ever happened to me, really. I think for anybody who was associated with West Side Story in any way, shape, or form, that is their main success, their main road to recognition even now. And it's so thrilling to be here with Russ, to be with you, and with your audience as well. I mean, it's amazing. 60 years later, we could never have thought that in a million years when we were doing it. So it's really serendipitous and happy and really lucky and wonderful that it has a life. It continues to have a life. Wonderful.
Russ, most people go through their lives wondering what kind of legacy they will leave. Not that yours will be limited to West Side Story for any of you guys, but you know that this is something that you made that matters to people. That's got to be, I don't know, it has to be so fulfilling.
Well, I've made over 80 movies, some good ones too, and some good musicals. But West Side Story is definitely the top of the bill, the top of the line, and the one that I'm most proud of, and especially for working with such great talent as George and Rita. I just am thrilled to be a part of this.
So sometimes there is the success of a single movie that comes to define a performer, a singer, a dancer, an actor, and they might resent the fact that when people talk to them, they want to talk about this one film.
No, I've never felt that. I'm really grateful for this movie and to be identified with it, to have played the role of Bernardo and have people think of me and remember me that way. That's amazing. It's wonderful, and it's a real blessing. It's a real blessing.
Rita, what about you?
I love every moment of it. I simply adore watching America. Not only, this might surprise you, not only for my part of the dance, which is the girls' part, but I adore watching George. George is just so bloody elegant. He's just such a super, very, very unusual dancer. He has that austere thing about him. I love watching it. I mean, I love me in it. I think I'm funny. I love everybody in it. I love the movie. I also remember such good times. I really do. That's when I became very close to George. And we have since, he's my daughter's godfather, Fernanda. And it has very, very happy memories for me.
Russ, did you feel a camaraderie on the set when you're making it? Was there a sense for you that something special was happening?
First of all, let me tell you that the one big regret that I had is that I never got to work with Rita.
Oh.
I got to work with George a lot. We did a knife fight, but I'm such a big fan of Rita's. I wish I'd have...
Oh, Russ, I'm so touched by that. My goodness, you never, ever said that to me. Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying it now. Thank you.
And also, Ben, the camaraderie when we were making this film was just mind-boggling. We had such a great time, all of us together. We worked really hard, of course, but we laughed. We laughed a lot. We played a lot. And Rita was so funny. So Rita and our friend Yvonne Wilder, Yvonne Othon, that humor just permeated everything. But it was a glorious time altogether.
So you talk about the camaraderie and the laughter. Who was needling people? Who made that happen? Where did it begin? Where did the trouble start?
Can I start with that?
Yeah, of course.
One of the Shark girls, Yvonne Wilder, Yvonne Othon, had an extraordinary, unique sense of humor. I did the play with Yvonne in London as well, so I knew Yvonne before the movie. But Yvonne's humor was adopted, I think, by all of us.
Yeah, the girl we're talking about, Yvonne Othon, you've already heard she's insanely funny. But what's marvelous, she's memorable because when I sing in the movie,
I like the island Manhattan.
I know you do.
the voice that you hear, I know you do, that is Yvonne. That was not part of the song. And ever since then, just for your delectation, everybody who does the play, the musical, has one of the girls say, I know you do. And that's Yvonne Osan.
May I say something that working with George was just awful. And I'll tell you why. Because he was my arch enemy in the movie.
I don't want you.
I want you, though.
And he was such a nice guy, so easy to work with. It was really, really hard. I had to do my best acting to hate him. And oddly enough, even though we were encouraged while we were making the movie to keep the Jets and the Sharks apart, when the movie finished, George and I became great friends. And I just appreciate it so much. And we got to be like brothers, so it was pretty amazing.
Let me ask you guys about the process, for the audition process, but also just hearing about it for the first time. So, George, you were in the London production. Tell people what character you played in the London production.
Well, in the London company, I played Riff, the leader of the Jets. I played Russ's part. But my first audition was for the role of Bernardo. I was so lucky to have played Riff, which I loved being in the theater. And to play Bernardo, because they're both such wonderful roles.
Russ, what about you?
I don't remember quite when I heard it was going to be made into a motion picture, but I remember seeing it in New York, of seeing the production of it. And I wanted so badly to play the part of Tony. And it wasn't until my agent, Phil Gersh, also was the agent of Robert Wise. And it was, I kept calling him, and saying, what's going on? And finally he told me, he said, well, they picked Richard Beamer for the part of Tony. And I went, oh man, too bad. He said, but they've offered you the part of Riff. And I said, Riff? It never occurred to me to do that part. And so he said, do you want to do that part? And I thought about it for about 5 seconds. And then I said, yes, I want to do it. But I think that they made the absolute right decision. It was a perfect part for me.
But if they say blades, I say blades. If they say guns, I say guns.
Rita, when did you hear about it, and what was your reaction, and how'd you get an audition?
I heard about it at the end of filming of The King and I, because I was working with Jerome Robbins, who choreographed all of The King and I anyway. Apparently it was he who thought of me for the role of Anita, and he consulted with Bob Wise and said, I think we should try her out. I think she'd be, I was no longer a Maria, because he had offered me an audition in the Broadway play for Maria to go and audition in New York. And I got cold feet. I got scared. Did you know that, George? You look surprised.
Yeah, well,
Anyway.
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
Yeah. And then when the movie came along, it was Jerry who suggested to his co-director, Robert Weiss, that they audition Rita Moreno for the part of Anita, because I have developed into Anita. I no longer looked like a Maria to him, and I really didn't. And that would have been so wrong. Isn't that interesting? And then I auditioned for the singing and I auditioned for the dancing.
Rita, I don't know you that well. I know your public-facing persona quite well. My father had a gigantic crush on you. But it surprises me.
We have to talk.
Yeah. But given what I know about you, it is very surprising to hear that you got cold feet and you were afraid to audition for the lead in what was going to be a huge Broadway musical.
Ben, it's one thing to be doing take after take until you get it right. And at that point, I'd been in movies just long enough to get used to that. But to work for someone as severe and difficult and demanding as Jerry Robbins in a Broadway situation scared the living daylights out of me.
Russ, did you have the same fear of Jerome Robbins?
Yes. The first thing that Jerry said to me is, he said, I've seen your movies. I've seen Seven Brides for Seven Brothers and Tom Thumb and The Fastest Gun Alive, where you danced on shovels and hit the deck. You played opposite Debbie, and you always do acrobatics in your dancing. And I have to tell you right now, there will be no acrobatics. It has to be straight dancing. Do you understand? And so I said, yes, I will do my very best. So that scared the hell out of me. And it wasn't until Jerry was fired, quite frankly, that Tony Mordente, the assistant, took over and said, let's put some tumbling back in. But what Jerry did that I thought was extremely smart is that he had me, if you look at it again, you'll see that I didn't do that much dancing. Like in the beginning, I did a lot of strutting. I strutted, you know, and I could strut great. I was a good strutter.
In retrospect, what I think I understand about Jerome Robbins was that he was a perfectionist, but he was a perfectionist with himself first. There was a tension, but I call, and I think of and believe it was a good tension, because it made everybody rise to the occasion, so to speak, try to the occasion, and keep trying to do better, which is what he did. He was never, I remember once Rita said, when we were doing the American number, and Rita said, it must really be terrible for Jerry, when they say cut and print, because then he had to keep going, because Jerry was the sort of creative person who could have worked on something forever because his creativity never stopped.
But he could be very cruel because he was a self-loathing person. He could be just unbelievably cruel to dancers or to whomever. You know, he did this with Stephen Sondheim, apparently also. He did this also with, in front of everybody. That's Jerry at his worst. Jerry at his best was, I worshiped him. I just worked. You know, if Jerry were to call me today and say, well, I have a dancing role for you. I know you're 89, but he said, I think you can do this. Do you? I'd probably say, well, I can try, Jer. You know, like an idiot, because he was a genius.
It was Russ who was the first person who let me know that Jerry had been fired. I couldn't believe my ears. And I personally was not happy about that, because I loved him and I thought he's what's making all of this happen to begin with. Jerry was the one who was, quote unquote, on the floor with us the whole time he was there. And Bob Wise, the incredible, beautiful, wonderful Bob Wise, was kind of a father figure in the back, overseeing a film, because Jerry had not done a film before. So that was kind of the relationship. It was Jerry who was on, quote unquote, on the floor with us, and that's who I remember feeling his presence, but not Bob necessarily. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just that's how it was happening. I'm a broken record here with my friends. They always know how I keep coming to Jerry's defense, so to speak, because of my admiration for him, and also because West Side Story wouldn't exist without him.
Russ, did you have a similar reaction, or did you sense some relief?
My reaction was a little different. Let me tell you this one story in New York when we did a long dance that went about a block long, the Jets, where we danced down this street and we got all the way to the end. And Jerry and Bob Wise were sitting on the camera, and Bob said, that was great for me. How's that for you, Jerry? And Jerry said, that was fine. It was good. We'll print it. But I'd like to do another one. But this time, I would like all the dancers, all of you, all the Jets, to dance on the other foot. And it took us like a half a day for all the dancers to learn all of that and to get it all. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that when he was fired, it wasn't for any other reason that he was taking so long to do his, and I believe he was a genius. I believe he was incredible, but he did do some things that were pretty far out. And that was one of them. So he had a really mean kind of disposition. He never bothered me. He was great with me. He was great with Rita. He was great with Natalie Wood. He was terrific with us. But there were other things with the dancers. He was mean.
Let me move to another point because, and thankfully, it's crazy, and Russ ends up being the first person to mention this. We've talked about Maria, but until Russ brought it up, we have not mentioned the name Natalie Wood, which, when you're talking about West Side Story, seems like a grave sin. George, let me start with you. When you think of West Side Story and Natalie, what are the thoughts that come to your mind?
Well, I think the world of Natalie. She was darling, she was beautiful, she was professional, she was talented, she was a star.
My brother is a silly watchdog.
My sister is a precious jewel.
When I see the movie, I haven't seen it that often, and I know what's coming, but Natalie gets me every time. She is so wonderful as Maria, and in that final scene, she was beautiful. I've heard stories about her being aloof and all of that. That was never my experience with her, and I never saw it.
Oh, see her. It is a beautiful dress. I love you.
Rita, your experience of working as closely as you did with Natalie Wood.
I don't think she was anything like the Maria that I envisioned in my head. I think a great deal of it had to do with the fact that she was not a Hispanic, not a Puerto Rican. That's not necessary, but Hispanic. I don't think she had any notion. So I found her wanting in terms of her interest in getting it as right as she could. But by the way, George, you were dead on right. She was wonderful in that last scene, Natalie. She was very moving. So, I take it back only to there. And I don't think she was terrific for me in A Boy Like that number, which was so intense.
A boy like that would kill your brother. Forget that boy and find another. One of your own kind. Stick to your own kind.
I mean, the fact that she was an American girl, I thought was wrong. From the get-go, I just thought it was wrong. The fact that some of the sharks were not necessarily Hispanic was wrong. The fact that we all had to wear one shade of brown makeup. And why couldn't I have, as Anita, been played with my skin color? Because Puerto Ricans they are Spaniards, they are French, they are Dutch, they are Taino Indian, they are sometimes as black as coal. That's what Puerto Ricans are. They're everything. So that if the makeup had simply matched the boys' skins, it wouldn't have bothered me, but it bothered me a lot, and it bothered me for a good reason. There was a shot, I remember, of George, a beautiful shot of him. And it looked like somebody took him by the ankles and dipped him in a bucket of mud. The makeup was so thick. In that sense, the film was very disappointing, very disappointing.
This is one of the big reasons of what the remake can offer, right? Getting Latino actors playing Latino roles, right, Rita?
Yeah, that's the point. That is the point exactly.
When you first heard, let me start with Russ, that they were going to be, that Spielberg, the great Steven Spielberg, was going to redo West Side Story, what was your reaction?
My reaction was, I can't wait to see what he's going to do with it. Not just because it was Steven Spielberg, who is not one of but he is the most successful directors, filmmakers in Hollywood. Period. That one. Now, his writer was Tony Kushner, who was just an incredible writer. When I found out that was going to be his writer, when I So many things when I found out, I thought, boy, this really sounds fascinating. But I think that it'll only encourage people to say, wow, boy, I want to see what the first one was like. It'll only bring our movie back, which was the original, which George has always said to me, hey, we did the original. That's the way I feel about it.
George, I can't imagine a remake of a movie that causes this much talk, this much excitement. And that is a testament to, as you say, the connection that the audience has to the original.
Well, when I first heard about it, I thought, and Steven Spielberg, I thought, he's going to do something wonderful. He's an incredible director. He's made wonderful, wonderful movies. Of course, I absolutely expect that that he will do something wonderful, and I'm going to love what I see him do. I'm sure of that. The only thing that I think is nice to remember that he had an incredible template to work from, to make his film, to work from, and that is the film that we were all part of. But more than that, the incredible gentlemen who created West Side Story to begin with. I just think that what preceded him should be respected. That's all.
First of all, you're talking to the right crowd. Your version will never, ever, ever not be respected. Rita, you're an executive producer on it, and you have a role in it.
Yeah, the part that I play is based on Doc, except this was Doc's widow, Valentina. So you're in for some surprises because there's some things that are done in this movie that weren't in the original that should have. But you'll say, oh my God, they're doing that, huh?
I got a couple more things I want to get to, and I know we've kept you guys, but I want to tell you guys what I did for about 35 minutes last night, which was watch again and again George Chakiris and Rita Moreno accept their Academy Awards in 1962. I cannot get enough of it. You got Shirley Jones announcing Best Supporting Actor. You got Rock Hudson announcing Best Supporting Actress. So I did a little math. Who do you think said more words, George Chakiris in his acceptance speech or Rita Moreno in hers?
We both said
I
very
know
little.
that. I said the least. I was so unprepared to win. And I had flown in. I was like on who knows what kind of time. And I didn't prepare. I was so sure that Judy Garland was going to win. I was sure for Judgment at Nuremberg. And I won. And man, was I surprised.
I can't believe it! Good Lord! I leave you with that.
11 words, the Rita Moreno acceptance speech.
Oh.
Very nice. George, your acceptance speech, you just rambled and rambled on and on. You went for 21 whole words.
I don't think I'll try and talk too much. I just want to say thank you very, very much. Thank you.
So you said more words, but this is what's really great. Rita's 11-word speech took 6.19 seconds, whereas your 21-word speech took only 5.67 seconds.
Okay.
So you were actually quicker, George.
Typical of me to be quiet. Well, it was incredible. One of the things I'm remembering and being here with you and Rita and Russ today, Rita and I attended the awards together. I've seen those clips of us winning a few times, and the last time I saw it, the thing I noticed, how happy Rita was that I won. I mean, her reaction and her getting close to me was the beautiful part of that. Thank you, Rita, because I could see how you felt. It was great.
Well, George,
Oh,
you can
George,
see your joy in Rita's winning too.
George, I was so close to tear. I think actually I teared up. I was just so happy for you. But you know, I love you. You're like my brother. You've always been. My daughter's godfather. I have a picture of him holding his little baby girl. We are very close. We love each other dearly. That's never changed.
So here we look at this. I mean, earlier, Russ, you said George is like a brother to you, and now Rita, you're saying George is like a brother. I mean, you guys aren't tricking us. You're actually friends.
We are. We're friends.
We are good friends.
George is like a brother to everybody.
But again, getting back to where we started, I think this piece creates those friendships among the cast. It's the piece that kind of starts that, and we keep it on.
George, I always loved insulting George's looks because he's so beautiful. And
Oh my God. So Rita,
I
hold
loved
on.
insulting
That
his looks.
let me just say, because you mentioned
Yeah.
George's looks. That Oscar night, George is the most beautiful human being I have ever seen when he walks up on that stage. It's like
I agree.
it's not fair to the other people, George.
Exactly. I went on a lot of tours for West Side Story around the country and in England and France. And I'll tell you something that happened. When George came on and leaned against that wall, and Rita mentioned the makeup, but I'll tell you what really happened was that when he leaned against that wall, the audience, there was a ooh, there was like a ooh. All the women in the audience just fell over, and that was it. He had them in the palm of his hand.
Olivia de Havilland was in the audience, and she was backstage at some point, and she was insane for him. I mean, I kind of had to calm her down.
So, guys, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I love the fact that as soon as you guys sat down together, it clearly meant something that you guys were together, something genuine. I hope I know it's special to you, but I hope you guys recognize that the friendship that the three of you have, that it means something to the
Can
millions
I just
of
say
people.
goodbye to the boys?
Of course.
Russ, you look wonderful.
Oh,
You really look terrific.
you look wonderful.
Right here. You seem not to have aged. George, you still have a long nose, but I love you anyway.
It's getting longer.
Guys, I don't know what to say here except thanks so much for being here on opening night of the 12th annual TCM Classic Film Festival. George Chakiris, Russ Tamblyn, Rita Moreno. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Ben.
And great to see Rita and Russ always, of course.
Mwah. Bye-bye.
Now here's the film, celebrating its 60th anniversary this year, from 1961, West Side Story.